about 13 kilometers southwest of Cairo, Egypt. On a vast stretch of desert known as the Giza Plateau, it stands, 147 meters tall. Each side of its base measures 230 meters. From above, the four sides align almost perfectly with the cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. The margin of error is just 0.05 degrees. This was achieved in an age without compasses. Satellites or computers and even modern engineers have struggled to explain how such precision was possible. The structure is made up of roughly 2.3 million individual stone blocks. Their combined weight reaches 6 million tons. The average block weighs about 2.5 tons, roughly the same as a mid-size car. Some blocks weigh as much as 15 tons. How these massive stones were lifted to such heights remains one of the most debated questions in archaeology. Some researchers believe ramps were used, dragged along inclined surfaces built alongside the pyramid. Others propose an internal spiral passage, through which the stones were hauled upward from inside. There are theories about water being poured onto sand to reduce friction, and even claims that the blocks were cast on site like concrete. None of these explanations has been fully accepted as the definitive answer. But the truly astonishing part of this story is not about the size, the weight, or the precision. The real secret of this pyramid was never on the outside. It was inside. For 4,500 years, humanity knew of only three spaces within the structure: the king's chamber, the queen's chamber, and the subterranean chamber. Everyone believed that was all there was. That belief was shattered not very long ago. This is the story of how, step by step, a fourth space, hidden inside the stone, was found. In the autumn of 2015, an international research team entered the pyramid. The project was called Scan Pyramids. It brought together physicists and engineers from Egypt, France, Japan, and Canada, a multinational effort unlike anything attempted before at this site. The tools they carried were not shovels or pickaxes. They brought specialized equipment designed to detect particles called muons. Muons are subatomic particles created when cosmic rays from deep space collide with Earth's atmosphere. They rain down on the planet constantly, tens of thousands every second, passing through everything in their path. At this very moment, roughly 1 muon is passing through the palm of your hand every second. Most people never notice. Muons have the ability to penetrate solid matter. However, when they pass through dense material like stone, some of them are absorbed and fewer make it through. When they encounter empty space, nearly all of them pass through unimpeded. The principle is remarkably simple. Place a detector beneath the pyramid and count how many muons arrive from above. Where stone is dense, fewer particles reach the detector. Where there is a void, more particles get through. It works the same way an X-ray distinguishes bone from soft tissue, except here, muons distinguish stone from empty space. In simple terms, it was a way to see inside the pyramid. Without touching a single stone, the team set up their equipment inside the queen's chamber. They carefully stacked thin emulsion, film plates, layer upon layer, with the precision of a laboratory procedure. Then they waited. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Muons needed time to accumulate before the data could form a meaningful picture. For all those months, the equipment sat in total darkness, silently collecting particles that had traveled from the edges of the universe. The researchers said nothing. The pyramid said nothing. Only silence filled the space between them. And then at last, the data arrived. When the muon trajectories recorded on the emulsion plates were analyzed one by one, an image emerged that no one had anticipated. Inside the pyramid, there is a structure called the Grand Gallery. It is a massive inclined corridor, 47 meters long and 8 meters tall, the most imposing space inside the entire pyramid. Its ceiling narrows in a stepped pattern as it rises, and anyone who enters it for the first time is overwhelmed by the scale. The critical data came from just above this Grand Gallery. Directly overhead, in a region where millions of tons of solid stone should have been packed tight, the muon count was abnormally high. More particles were getting through than the stone should have allowed. It meant that where there should have been rock, there was none. A void. A large empty space, roughly 30 meters long, comparable in size to the Grand Gallery itself. At first, the team suspected an error, finding an unknown cavity of this scale. Inside a 4,500-year-old structure was, by any standard, an extraordinary claim. They replaced the equipment. They repositioned it and measured again. The Japanese team used nuclear emulsion film technology. The French team deployed scintillator detectors. The Canadian team employed gaseous detectors. 3 different technologies, 3 independent teams, all measuring the same location separately. The results converged. A void existed there. A fourth space never once recorded in 4,500 years of history. The King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber, the subterranean chamber. Those 3 were everything humanity had known, and now a fourth had appeared. In November 2017, the discovery was officially published in the journal Nature. The global archaeology community was electrified. But amid the excitement, one heavy question remained. They knew the space existed, but no one could find a way to reach it. The 30-meter void sat in silence, entombed beneath millions of tons of stone. In March of 2023, the research team returned to the Giza Plateau. This time, they did not bring Muon detectors. They brought a tiny robotic camera, an endoscopic device, small enough to be threaded through a narrow gap in the stone. A fiber optic cable just 6 millimeters in diameter, with a camera mounted at its tip. Thinner than a little finger, this device was about to capture the first images of a space that had been sealed for 45 centuries. On the north face of the pyramid, slightly offset from the known original entrance, there was a small gap. Its existence had been noted before, but it had always been dismissed as a structural irregularity, a meaningless crack between blocks. When the team cross-referenced this gap against the Muon data, however, a new possibility emerged. This crack might be the entrance to the hidden corridor. The robot was sent inside. A narrow passage appeared roughly 1 meter wide and just over 2 meters tall. Barely enough room for one person to pass through while crouching. The ceiling was too low to stand and the walls too close to extend one's arms. The robot moved forward, slowly but without stopping. 1 meter, 3 meters, 5 meters. The walls captured by the camera were rough. The limestone surface looked as though it had been hastily chipped away with hand tools. Chisel marks were clearly visible, with no sign of any finishing or polishing. 7 meters, 8 meters, 9 meters. At the 9-meter mark, what the camera revealed was not a dead end. The corridor continued into the darkness. But at that very moment, something unexpected appeared on the screen. The texture of the walls was changing. Up to 9 meters, the stone was rough and crudely cut. Beyond that point, where the camera's light barely reached, the surface was smooth, carefully ground and polished, as if someone had deliberately finished it by hand. In ancient Egyptian architecture, this difference carries a clear meaning. Rough-cut sections served as simple transit passages, functional corridors for moving people or materials. Smoothly finished sections led to something important, a sacred space, a ceremonial structure, or a chamber of significance. The Grand Gallery, which leads to the King's Chamber, is finished in exactly this way. The moment the team understood what this shift in texture meant, their expressions changed. This was not just an empty passage, it was heading somewhere. And that somewhere was of immense importance. The follow-up Muon scan data was released shortly after. This time, the resolution was far more precise than anything produced before. What the data revealed exceeded all expectations. The corridor that the robot had confirmed for 9 meters did not stop there. It continued for a total of 30 meters. Beyond the 9 meters the robot had reached, another 21 meters remained a stretch that no camera, no human eye, and no instrument had yet penetrated. 21 meters of absolute darkness, untouched for millennia. And the data showed one more thing, something decisive. At the 30-meter mark, the Muon particle count dropped sharply. Particles that had been passing freely through the empty corridor were suddenly blocked, as though they had struck a massive wall. It meant that a thick mass of stone was completely sealing the end of the passage. A door, a sealed door. 4,500 years ago, someone built this corridor, placed a massive stone barrier at its end, and closed it. And from that moment on, it was never opened again. Here, a peculiar fact comes to mind. Inside the King's Chamber, there is a sarcophagus carved from red granite. But when it was first examined, the sarcophagus was empty. There was no lid. Some believe grave robbers took whatever was inside. But the sarcophagus itself is larger than the chamber's entrance. This means it was placed there during construction. It has been in the room since the pyramid was built. In other words, the sarcophagus was always there, but nothing was ever found inside it. The Queen's Chamber had no sarcophagus at all. Its walls bore no decorations, no inscriptions, and no trace of any occupant. If this pyramid was truly a tomb, then where is the person it was built for? The meaning of that empty sarcophagus could change entirely. Because of this sealed door, the true occupant may lie behind it. Or perhaps the assumption that this was a tomb was wrong. From the very beginning, the answer is behind that door. Then why has no one opened that door yet? The first thought might be that it is technologically impossible. But the technology already exists. Miniature robots can navigate deeper, and precision. Cutting tools can handle stone at the millimeter level. The obstacle is not technology. It is the weight of what this structure represents. And by weight, it is not merely the physical kind. The Great Pyramid is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is considered one of the defining monuments of human civilization. Singular, irreplaceable, and unrepeatable. Moving even a single stone. Requires joint authorization from the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities and UNESCO. Even with authorization, if the process causes a crack in the internal structure, the damage would be permanent and irreversible. Something that has endured for 4,500 years could be destroyed by a single moment of haste. That is why every approach has been extraordinarily cautious. But caution alone does not explain the hesitation. When the Muon data was analyzed at even higher precision, a shocking structural detail emerged. The door was not one door. Behind the first stone barrier, there was another blocking stone, and behind that one, yet another, a layered seal. Not one barrier, not two, but at least three. This was not a simple case of plugging a corridor. It was a structure designed to conceal something thoroughly, deliberately, and obsessively. Whoever designed this pyramid 4,500 years ago seems to have anticipated that someone would one day find this path. And so they sealed it not once, but multiple times. It is as if they were saying, you have come this far, but go no further. And yet, paradoxically, this very thoroughness is the most powerful. Evidence of all? If there were nothing to hide, there would be no reason to seal it like this. Behind 3 layers of stone, what was it they so desperately wanted to keep hidden? A sarcophagus? Treasure? A written record? Or something entirely beyond what we have yet imagined? Cairo, Egypt. The Giza Plateau. When the sun sets, this desert becomes astonishingly quiet. Even the wind seems to hold its breath. In that silence, this massive stone structure, built 45 centuries ago, still has not revealed everything it holds. Hidden among 2.3 million blocks, buried beneath millions of tons of stone, a 30-meter corridor waits. At the end of that corridor stands a sealed door. What lies beyond that door? Behind its layers of stone remains unknown to this very moment. A prominent archaeologist once said of this discovery, it will rewrite history, whether that is an exaggeration, or the truth can only be confirmed when the door is opened. But there is something worth reflecting on. For 4,500 years, this pyramid has been examined by countless eyes. Conquerors entered it by force. Tomb robbers blasted through its walls with gunpowder. Scholars measured every surface and recorded every detail. And yet this corridor was never found. That was not simply because it was well hidden. It was because the technology to see the invisible had not yet been placed in human hands, until particles from the edge of the universe illuminated the secret inside the stone. This door might as well have not existed. For 4,500 years, perhaps this door has been waiting for someone who could find it. And now that someone is standing before it, every step technology takes forward, another layer of the past is peeled away. When the next layer falls, this story will begin again. That day is not far away.